G'day guys, welcome to this week's video, and as you can see we're at the Caboolture showroom because all it's done in southeast Queensland is rain. So we thought we'd utilise this time productively and answer some of the questions that we get about the different types of models and those sorts of things that we've been lucky enough to spend the last sort of 12 to 18 months in. So what we're going to talk about in today's video is sort of what are the differences in the evolution of these hybrids. What do I mean by the evolution? Well, hybrids started off basically a fancy camper trailer. So utilising all of that outdoor living space, but putting a bit more luxury of maybe a caravan in, mashing it together and coming out with a product. Over the past couple of years, that's evolved, and that's evolved because people have different needs and all couples and families have different uses for the way that they're going to be using their hybrid. And what we've started to see is maybe less of the pop tops, less of the bump out bed sections, and moving more towards those fully solid vans. And I know somebody's going to tell me, hey Ant, that's not a hybrid anymore, that's a caravan. I don't really care what you call them, to be honest guys. We've still got probably at the more end of a caravan morphing into the outdoor living space, but we've got these awesome products and a decision that you need to make when you're ordering your hybrid van. So we're going to go through the insights that we've gathered over the last 18 months, and I'm going to tell you exactly which ones we prefer because, as I said, everybody uses vans differently. I'm going to run through, and we're actually going to be able to physically demonstrate them here at the showroom because we've got all the different types of models. So let's jump into the van to start off with, and then we'll come out and talk about towing, we'll talk about outdoor living space, a whole raft of things that you need to consider. Let's get into it. All right, so we're going to kick off on the inside of the vans, and we're going to start in a hardtop, so we're in the Commander at the moment. The first thing that you're going to notice, and we're going to talk about storage to kick it off. First thing you're going to notice is all of this cabinetry up high, running all of the way to the roof. Now that is really, really awesome because it gives us so much space that you're not going to get in a pop-top van, because your pop-top vans are basically canvas all the way through here. The added benefit though of all of this storage space being up nice and high is it means that there's less storage space needed down below. So we've got a full-length wardrobe here and cupboards and drawers. But because on this side we've got all of this overhead space, it leaves a huge footprint on the ground to be able to pull off, even in a 16-foot van, this really long bench seat and this table space. So one of the things that I've noticed significantly in the difference between a high roof or a solid roof and a pop top is not just the extra storage up the top, but it's the extra space that you get down below. Now it may be an optical illusion, but I kind of feel like there's more open space in these hard top vans. The next thing that I wanted to talk about was, let's have a look at some of the little things that you're probably not going to think about. Maybe loves this one because she's busy in the bathroom getting ready and that sort of thing. Because we go all the way to the roof and there's no roof that's going to drop down, the mirror is actually at head height. The other thing that you get in this particular model is you can bolt towel racks and those sorts of things up nice and high in the van because there's just this extra space. So what that kind of does is it just gives you, even though the footprint of the ensuite is the same, it gives you all of this space up high here as well. Just little things, but they make the livability on the inside of these vans just a little bit nicer. Now really, really quickly, I'll show a couple of other things that you can achieve in these vans because there's no moving pop-top roof. I know this stuff is down low, but again, it just gives you all of this space for all of this cabinetry, all of our electrical controls, which are usually down lower or hidden away in a cupboard in the other vans, taking up a cupboard space, is achieved on this panel here. So this wouldn't obviously be able to be done in a pop-top roof because this is going to come down. So it just gives you more usable space on the inside of the van, which I would say makes the livability of the solid roof, solid backs just a little bit easier when you're out there on the road, particularly if you're traveling long term. One last thing before we go over to the Scirocco Grande, which is that pop top roof, to show you the differences. This door, because we've got more height here, is actually a bit more of a full height door. So when I walk out of here, because I'm not real tall, I don't need to bend over. There's less chance of me hitting my head. And I know this might sound funny, but little things that you don't think about when you're making the decision. So if you're tall in particular, maybe the solid roof is a better way to go if you don't want to hit your head as much. So let's go over to the Grande now and we'll show you a comparison. All right, so here we are in the Grande. Very, very similar size van, similar sort of application for people to choose from, but we've got the pop-top roof in this one. So the first thing I'm going to say about the pop-top roofs is a benefit, even though people may not see this as a benefit, is when you get to a destination, you've been carting the van for 3 or 4 hours, 35, 40 degrees outside, it is really easy to open up all of these windows on the pop-top and get the airflow in to cool the van down really, really quickly, or much more quickly if than we can with the with the solid roof van. Now, okay, if you're going to a caravan park, you're probably going to plug into power and put the aircon on straight away. But if you're off grid, this is it's a bit of a difference and something you need to consider the way that you use the van. What you would see, as you saw in the Commander, was all of the cupboard spaces were there. Yes, there's some beautiful big windows in the Commander, but nothing compared to what you've got in this Scirocco Grande. Now, the other thing that we get asked a lot, hard top, soft top, is are the soft tops less efficient when it comes to things like heating and cooling? And even though we've lived in both of the vans extensively now, it's a little bit hard to make that call. But what I would say is we've traveled a lot in these soft top vans. We've been in 47 degrees, we've been in -3 degrees. And from a heating and cooling perspective, I've honestly never been sitting there thinking, you know what? I wish that I was in a solid van because it's not cooling down quickly or it's not heating up quickly. The quality of the gear, particularly the jar we use, these air conditioning units, Webasto and the eBespacher diesel heater, I haven't really noticed the difference. Yeah, maybe the solids cool down or heat up a little bit quicker, but as I said, I've never been sitting there worried about being in a pop-top van. The diesel heaters have done their jobs, the air conditioning units have done their job cooling down. So, you know, realistically, I don't think that for me, and for Mavie, who have been in these vans an awful lot, I think that's a real non-issue. Just to reinforce what we were talking about en-suites and mirrors and those sorts of things, quick look in here. Now, we've got a lovely size ensuite in the Scirocco Grande, but we've certainly got less vanity space. And we haven't got a mirror in here. Not important for me because I look beautiful as soon as I get out of the shower, but not so important for Mavie. But the guys at Jara have been really creative. They've managed to get a mirror in here. And Mavie's also got her workaround with her Target mirror. But these are just little things that you probably never think about when you're making a decision between the vans that you need to consider as well. So lots of differences, even though the Scirocco Grande and the Commander are very similar. I guess when you think about 16-foot vans, and they do suit couples really, really well, but lots of points of difference that you need to consider when you're actually making a purchasing decision on these vans. Just to round out the efficiency piece around pop tops and hard tops is around DRS systems. So we get asked quite often, did you find more dust coming into the pop top roof or even the bump out beds? To be really honest, guys, you've got the DRS system here in the Commander and in the Scirocco Grande. We noticed no difference in terms of dust. The reason we noticed no difference in terms of dust is we didn't get dust in either of the vans. Even when we go back to our Infinity, which is our original van that we purchased from Jawa, because we had the DRS system and that was a bump up roof and bump out bed, zero dust. So I find the Dometic DRSs, if they're installed by a professional, are absolutely amazing. It's sort of one of those things that we would have regardless of whether we've got a soft top or a hard top van. Another piece we want to talk about is coming up on chat forums, and we get asked this question a little bit as well. What about the condensation with a pop-top roof? So it is true, a pop-top roof, because we've got canvas at the top here, on a really cold night, if we're not running our diesel heater, we're breathing out hot air. Condensation happens when hot air hits a cold surface. So these are a little bit more prone to condensation. However, there are ways to pretty much eliminate it, and they're pretty simple. One, if you've got a van that's running a diesel heater, run your diesel heater for a little bit more, and that will dehumidify the air. But if you're not wanting to do that, there's some really simple things to do as well. We've found with these upper windows, generally over your bed is probably a little bit easier, but we don't want to mess up the display van here, is you just crack these windows ever so slightly. Now, you may think that that's going to let more cold air in, but at the end of the day, these vans are pretty small packages, so it's going to be cold anyway. With a little bit of airflow, this is letting the air circulate, letting that hot air out, and also letting some cooler air in, just to balance up that condensation. So you can't completely eliminate condensation unless you're running your diesel heater on a really, really cold night. But just by cracking a few of these windows, or even you're opening up windows, just leaving them not fully locked up, will allow a little bit more of that airflow, less heat temperature variance, which means less condensation as well. So one of the things I love about what the guys of Jara have done with these 2024 models is the addition of this rubber here, particularly for taller people. Maybe hits a head pretty regularly, but watch this. A little bit different to what we had in the Commander. So you do need to duck a little bit coming out, have got a bit of head protection there, but just another consideration that you need to make when you're choosing your van. So here we are standing in between high top van or hard top van and a soft top van. As you can see visually straight away, significant differences in the resting height or the traveling height of these two particular models. One's a Stealth 16, one's a Commander. We've had both of these so we can be really, really confident in what we're talking about here. Now, first thing with that height, this is naturally going to lend itself for getting deeper off-road and into more places than you can with this higher top van. So think about up around Orchard Beach and Waddy Point on Gari. Think about Flinders Beach on Stradbroke Island, or for those of you in the west, think about maybe Banksia Camp and those sorts of places. There are definitely places that I would be happy to take a Stealth 16 where I probably wouldn't be taking a Commander 16. So that's one consideration in terms of the overall maneuverability and also the height of these vans. Now, the other thing to think about with that is when you're storing these vans, you're going to need to work out if you're storing it in a shed, under a carport, getting these things under eaves and those sorts of things. How much is the height of these vans going to limit you as well? So they're really, really big considerations when you're choosing the van. We've also got the lowdown over here, which is just that little bit lower because there's no roof-mounted aircon, no roof-mounted DRS, and it's small enough to fit in basically a standard 3x6 garage. So considerations not just around when you're towing these vans and getting into remote places, but also what you're going to be doing with them when you're storing them. Now, the next thing that we're going to talk about is towing dynamics, because these heights make a significant difference when you're towing these things around the country. Now, both these vans towed absolutely beautiful when we were in WA recently, and we did a lot of kilometres, about 10,000 kilometres in each of these vans. I will say that I did notice winds, particularly crosswinds and particularly headwinds, more when we were pulling the Commander as opposed to when we were pulling the lower roof Stealth 16. That's going to impact a couple of different things. Number one, when you've got a crosswind in particular, that side of the Commander, which is about probably 18 inches or 1.5 foot higher, is naturally going to catch more wind. That is going to push the van ever so slightly more than this. Now, we never had a problem when we were towing these, but you definitely could feel the difference. When you're talking about headwinds, headwinds are actually going to be what's going to kill your fuel economy or improve your fuel economy if you've got a tailwind. I noticed between these two different vans, because they're sitting at such different heights, and obviously with a higher one, you're going to be punching through and cutting the air more, I ran about 1.5 to 2 litres per 100 higher when we were towing the Commander as opposed to the Stealth 16, both sitting around very similar weights as well. So there is a big difference. Well, when I say 2 litres per 100, what's that? $3, $4, depending on the price of fuel. So that's going to add up over lots and lots and lots of thousands of kilometres. Another consideration that you need to make. Another thing in terms of towing dynamics, and the guys at Jawa do a great job with their bearings, with their suspension and those sorts of things. But when I was inside the Commander talking about all of that beautiful high cupboard space, also is naturally going to shift your centre of gravity, not only because the van is higher, but also because where you're storing your weight is going to be a little bit higher as well. All right, so we've talked about the pop top and the hard tops. We haven't talked much about bump outs. So what we're going to do now is go over to the Infiniti 15 and have a look at what are the pros and cons, I guess, of a bump out bed. Let's get in there. All right, so let's start with the benefits of these bump out beds. I know a lot of manufacturers are going away from them. I'm really glad that Jawa still keep it in the range, so let's check it out. Maybe didn't make this bed, obviously. Now that bump out section is giving you an extra metre of platform in this van. It's only 15 foot long, but there is more space in here than the 16-foot Commander or Sirocco Grande. Because that bed shoots a metre that way, it gives us a metre of space in here. So even in a 15-foot van, we've got a king-size bed, we've got our internal cooking, we've got a nice table area, and we've also got these bunks at the front of the van to suit a family. So that bump out bed, when it's packed up, also keeps the van nice and short for when we're towing. So if we're going up to Orchard Beach or Waddy Point, or if we're going over to Flinders Beach or something like that on Stratty, got a nice compact package, but it opens up to suit, you know, a family of 4 or 5. Let's go out and have a look at the outside of this now. So here we are at the rear bump out of the Infiniti 15. The first thing you'll notice is that the tyres drop down, and then the bed's going to protrude out in this section here. Now, one of the things you probably haven't thought about, and we catch ourselves with this all of the time, when you've got the drop down tyres, we like to strap our bin bag on the back of the spare tyres. When you've got the drop down section down, you lose that bin, unfortunately. So one of the drawbacks of the bump out bed, it's a little one, but something to think about. The other part about this section here is it's a bit more work to do when you're setting up. So you've got to pull everything. I'll pull this up first, pull these sides out, and then pull the back up and lock it all into position. So in terms of setting up, you're gaining an extra metre of space within the van, but you're going to probably lose 5 to 10 minutes when you're setting up each time. Another consideration to make. Let's go and have a look at the awning space now, or the outdoor living area. So the way that Rochelle's got the vans parked here is a perfect way to demonstrate the differences on the outside living area between a hard top and a soft top. We've got the highest of the high vans, which is a Retreat Escape here. And we've got the lowest van in the range, which is the low down model here. Now check this out. Both got beautiful big awnings, but check, I'm not real tall compared to this. I'm still about 30 centimeters off this one. So let me talk about what difference that makes other than just the look and the feel under here. Recently we were over in Broome. We got 55 millimeters in about 3 hours. We had the Commander at that point in time. We had the awning out, Maeve was out buying dresses, and I'm like, oh, it's raining really heavy, I'm worried about the awning. Because of the height of that awning and the angle that we had it on, the high roof with the higher attachment of the awning giving us the ability to do this, the rain just slid straight off. Whereas if you look at this particular one, obviously in rainy weather you would still drop a leg, but it doesn't give you that much room underneath here because the awning is affixed to the side of the van where it's solid. So just a few little considerations that you need to make. Now I'm going to step over here maybe under the Retreat. I feel like I'm in an apartment. There is so much room at the back of the van. Let's have a look at a couple of other little bits and pieces that you're going to get with a hard roof van. The height of this door is just that little bit bigger. Now I'm only 5'8", but if you're 6'8", you'd still fit under this comfortably, be able to reach in here, be able to do the washing up. So guys, you can't get out of the washing up if you're really tall, and do the cooking as well. It just allows that higher mounting of everything on the van and way more space in this pantry. Let's walk over to the lowdown. Still got a really cool pantry, but because of the profile of the side of this van, we just don't have quite as much space. So the other thing that we're going to have to do here is when I'm washing up, probably going to have to drop that pantry down to be able to get there, because that's going to be sitting at head height for me. So the lowdown is a beautiful van for those who have limited space, particularly when thinking about storage, but there's a bit of a payoff on the outdoor living area compared to the hardtop vans. So there you have it, guys. Heaps and heaps of data points based on our insight and our experience. We're not going to tell you our favorite, because your favorite is going to be completely different. I want you to think through those things. When you go to a caravan show, you're thinking about specs, you're thinking about numbers, you're thinking about what's included, what's not included. But there's a whole raft of other things that you need to consider. Number one, what's my tow vehicle? What's its capacity? And where do I want to go? How am I going to predominantly use these vans? Where am I going to store this van when we're not traveling? And all of those things combined are going to help you make a decision on these vans. Now, what I really love about the range at Jawa is there's basically a van to suit who's prioritizing what feature and benefit to suit them. So come down, check them all out. I'll guarantee you'll find a van that's best going to suit you. But think about these things, because it's a big decision, it's lots of money, and hopefully we've dispelled or cleared up some of the things that you've been asking us in the past. If you haven't heard a question that you would really like answered, please drop it in the video and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And if you really enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Cheers, guys.